Hi, my name is Céline Morin. This short presentation is aimed at giving you a holistic view of three different areas of well-being and some practical tips that you can potentially take to enhance your lifestyle. Because so many of us were working remotely, we're living remotely, and I'd like to make living and working less remote and more remarkable. We're all in the same tide, so to speak, and collectively we can help each other by rising the well-being tide. And so I'm going to share quite a few tips and techniques. I don't want you to take everything to heart. Take one thing. One's enough. Because if you take one thing and you consistently put it into action, that's a whole lot better than doing a whole lot once and intensely. Consistency trumps intensity. And after the presentation, I'll share my contact details. If you have any questions about any of the topics that come up, I'd absolutely love to hear from you. When we talk about well-being, well-being is a broad range of things. So just in terms of summarizing it, we're going to take a look at your physical well-being, which is your body. And that relates to how you move, how you exercise, how you eat, also how you rest and sleep. Then another dimension of well-being is emotional well-being, which is around how we manage our emotions, how we manage ourselves, our relationships with others, those close to us and those beyond those closer circles. Then we have mental well-being, which is it's also called your intellectual well-being, which is your ability to think, to problem solve, to have a memory, creative thinking. And then there's also a fourth dimension, which I won't go into detail, but it wouldn't be right not to mention it. And that is the dimension of meaning, which is around, for some people, that means spirituality or religion. And for some, it's about having a purpose in life, a greater meaning. And through the uncertain, challenging, and very stressful times we're going through, I'm sure that many of you are thinking about what is my personal meaning. For the next 25 minutes or so, I'm going to share some of the tips and techniques that have been helping me and my clients, which are a range of business owners, entrepreneurs, people working either in isolation or from home, or even still working if you're part of essential services. And this structure has helped me is every day I try and do one small thing for my head, for my heart, and for my HARA. And I'll share with you what HARA is when we get there. Let's start with head, and I'll explain in a moment why I've chosen that particular picture. So the benefits of what you could experience if you follow some of the techniques I'm going to share is having a sense of being grounded, even when you're feeling very tired and wired, and also an ability to stay curious and calm despite all the chaos. So if you're feeling stressed, what happens generally when we're feeling stressed is we can spend a lot of time in our heads and get quite anxious. And many other things happen, like your blood pressure goes up, digestion doesn't work that well, your heart may race, you may lose the ability for big picture thinking. And being able to ground is incredibly useful. One of the best ways to do that is spend time in nature. If you have access to a garden, actually physically standing on the ground is really good. We're still fortunate in the UK I'm not sure where you are when you're watching this, but if you're able to spend time in nature, going out maybe for a walk or a run, of course, maintaining physical distance regulations is key. And if you can't get outdoors, to spend some time in sunlight, even if that means sitting by an open window. And as a last resort is to listen to natural sounds using playlists or YouTube, for instance. So listen to nature and imagine yourself in a place that you enjoy, be it the forest, by the ocean, in the mountains, on the African safari plains. And then a grounding technique that I use regularly is ABC. I got this from integration training, so just a shout out to Mark Walsh and the team there. Out of ABC, if you just use B for breathing and breath, that is your golden key to managing stress. Because one of the first things we do when we're stressed is restrict our breathing. And so by breathing in deeply into your belly, and especially by lengthening your exhale, you can trigger the rest and digest part of the nervous system rather than the fight or flight or freeze and fold. So ABC stands for awareness, breathing, your breath, and core relax. Let's try this right now, just for a minute, because these techniques, even body scanning is another one. If you don't want to focus on your breath, you can also scan your body, say from the top of your head right down through your shoulders, your hips, your legs, down to your toes, relaxing all the body parts that you go through. That's also a lovely way to feel more grounded. And the more you practice this, the more you can do it in quick wins. So literally, if you take a mindful minute, and here a shout out to Steve Savides, who gave me this concept. In 1 minute, if you go inward, slow down your breathing, scan your body, you can have a beneficial effect in terms of the stress response. So I invite you, wherever you are right now, I know it's so easy to be distracted and you may be doing other things, but put your phone down for 1 minute. Let's make this time worthwhile. And soften your gaze, just let your eyes drop so that you're not distracted. Bring your awareness to your feet or to the chair or to the sofa or the bed, whatever you're sitting on right now. And bring your awareness to your heart area and your breath. And could you take a slightly deeper breath into your belly on your next inhale? And on your next exhale, could you lengthen it so that it's longer than your inhale? And could you relax any tension around your forehead? Maybe allow your tongue to drop to the bottom of your mouth so that you can release tension around your jaw. Allow your shoulders to soften and fall more towards the ground. Notice if you're feeling any tension in your lower belly or your glutes, your buttocks, your bum. Relax, relax your body. One more breath in your own time. Right. Lift your gaze back, wriggle your toes, move your fingers. Do you also feel that sense of calm? Very important to relax the body, especially when you're feeling stressed. It can help mitigate the stress response enormously. Another way to stay feeling calm and curious, because curiosity can help a lot for us to find solutions to problems that we otherwise wouldn't if we didn't ask the right questions, is firstly, control what you can. And psychologists speak about something called radical self-acceptance. We have never been through what we're going through at the moment. So there is no right and wrong. There's no roadmap. So actually, you can't get this wrong. We don't know what is going to work. So be kind and compassionate and accepting of yourself. This is not a time to look for perfection. I mentioned when I started, small things done consistently are much more important, especially right now, than intensity. And then if you want to tap into the unconscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the imagination and find potential solutions and shift out of feeling contracted and stressed, asking the right questions can help a lot. Perhaps not the right questions, but conscious questions. Here's an example. There are many, and I would highly recommend. Nick Haynes has a webinar that's half an hour on conscious questions. If you're curious to know how to find that, if you can't find it on Google, it's from the 5 Institute. You're welcome to contact me. So this question has helped me when I particularly went through a stressful time worrying about my parents who are in South Africa, far away from where I am in London. And so I started to ask myself, why is it entirely possible that my parents will be okay? Why is it entirely possible that even if they get sick, they can bounce back? Why is it entirely possible that I can feel calm? Why is it entirely possible that I can sleep well tonight? Why is it entirely possible that I can feel fit and healthy even if I get sick? Do you get the idea? So by using that reframe at the beginning of something that would cause you, that could be causing you a sense of dis-ease or anxiety, By asking such a question, this is an example of many ways, but this one, why is it entirely possible that? It opens up your imagination to potential solutions that you might not have thought of if you were just caught in the spiral of that particular issue. So before we move on, is there a point on this slide that you feel is something that you could potentially use in your life? Right, so now moving on to the heart. So when it comes to the heart, the benefits that you can experience from using the techniques I'm going to share is a greater sense of connection with yourself and with others, and a sense of calm, even though there's a lot of chaos and stress out there. So connecting with yourself and celebrating and connecting with others, what helps is, I know this is much easier said than done, is to try and celebrate even and especially the small things. So how can you look out for things to be grateful for? Because even though there is a lot to be upset about, there is always something to be grateful for. And no matter what you are going through, I've used this often to help myself. There is somebody who's going through the same thing, and there is also potentially somebody going through something worse. So I keep a gratitude journal. There's something really powerful about writing down things that you're grateful for. I try and laugh once a day, chuckle. We know that laughter is definitely the best medicine, and there's so much stress and reasons not to laugh. I have never been so tearful in my life. And yes, it's good to express the tears and cry, but it's also good to try and laugh. I don't laugh always that easily naturally. So I watch comedy. I know there are particular YouTube channels that are going to get me to laugh. And then creativity is another way that you can help connect with yourself and connect with others. So as a family, especially with children, we know that creativity, so painting, puzzles, doing adult mandalas, playing with Play-Doh, doing any kind of creative art can help you shift into a different space and help you potentially express emotion that you might find difficult to do cognitively or with words. And then, as much as possible, do something every day for somebody else. Even if it's as simple as sending a message to somebody who you know may not be getting a lot of messages. The act of giving is truly an incredible act. And then remember to disconnect. The social media drama is real and it pulls us in and increases stress. So try and designate times in your day, maybe twice a day, at most 3 times a day, where you spend time on social media and the news. Because if you want to reconnect with yourself, it's important to disconnect and communicate with those around you. You might wake up feeling great. You might wake up feeling terrible. There's no reason why, but no one's going to know unless you tell them. Also understand that treat yourself with compassion, but also understand that confinement and all the stress and what's happening around us, we haven't experienced ever before. So everybody is probably doing the best that they can with where they are and what they have. And if you assume that, it can help you a lot to accept what's going on. And then bookending your day. So starting your day and ending your day in a sense of positivity could produce hormones like oxytocin and dopamine that can help you relax. And so perhaps this is something you could do is before you get out of bed in the morning, could you say, well, today will be good or today will be wonderful because it's kind of like setting yourself up for success, right? If you find this a bit contrived or forced, perhaps you could ask yourself before you get out of bed, what am I looking forward to? And on some days, there may be many things. On some days, you may have to dig deep. But try not to let your feet touch that carpet or touch the floor next to your bed without thinking or expressing one thing that you're looking forward to. And then before going to sleep, reflect on why was today good? Today was good because, today was wonderful because. And if there isn't anything that comes up, maybe you could then think, why will tomorrow be good? So before I move on to the HARA, what from this slide could potentially be something that you could put into place wherever you're at and what your lifestyle is? Right, HARA is the Japanese word for core. Now, core makes me think of when we're exercising, having a strong core is important. And of course, core is where your digestive system resides. I'm a dietitian and nutritionist by qualification, so I am intrigued by nutrition and how that relates to our well-being. The benefits you can have when you look after your HARA, your core health, is that you can feel fit and energized no matter what you're going through. You can also stay as healthy as possible and optimize your immunity. The key to feeling good is to moving your body, because we know that motion shifts emotion. You should not sit for long periods of time. So ideally every 45 minutes, especially if you're working from home. It's so easy to have back-to-back online meetings with Zoom and Microsoft Teams and whatever platforms you're using, but your energy will wane and you will feel drained if you don't get up and stretch. So this is a guideline that I use. The 111 rule is every day, especially during these very stressful times and not commuting, is to exercise for an hour a day. We're fortunate enough in the UK, I'm not sure where you are when you watch this, but we're able to go outdoors as long as we are exercising, so walking, running, or doing some kind of exercise, and of course respecting physical distance regulations. But if you can't get out, or if you don't want to go out, could you put on your favorite playlist or tunes? Could you find a HIIT session, that's high intensity interval training, on YouTube? Could you try something like Pilates or driving or yoga? But as much as possible to do maybe half an hour in the morning, half an hour at the end of the day, or an hour on most days. Very important for releasing feel-good chemicals, for helping your detoxification system and releasing cortisol, and keeping you fit, keeping your metabolism up. And then another guideline is, at minimum, stretch for 1 minute every hour. Ideally, you should be getting up, grabbing a glass of water, hydrating, moving around, and then sitting down to engage with the next hour. Because otherwise you might end up being very constricted. And a lot of us are working in not very ergonomically friendly setups, on beds, on sofas, in living rooms, and cramped up in a corner, which is not ideal. This presentation is not going to go into the benefits of sleep. But if we want to feel energized, we have to get deep rest. So be sure to look out for a follow-up, or to look for other experts in this field, like Dr. Narina Ramaklan, for instance, who speak about the benefits and how to get deep rest. In terms of eating well and looking after our general physical body, I have a framework that I've used for many years called the Wellculator. So I'm not going to go time into the Wellculator now, but it is available, and I will go into detail on the Wellculator in another separate presentation. The key point on the Wellculator is point number 2, which is eat like an artist. What that means is eating lots of colorful foods. Now, colorful foods are not wine gums and jelly babies. They are fresh produce. So vegetables, salads, and fruit. If you want to boost your immunity, it's really important to make sure that you get a lot of those into your diet. A lot means about 8 to 10 servings a day. And if you can, focusing on the ones that are particularly good for the gut. So if you'd like a special list of those foods, you can always visit Genomic Kitchen, or you're welcome to be in contact with me. I also do a weekly recipe. Now, I'm not a chef, but I am a French foodie. So I put together like meals of 5 ingredients or less. I try and use those ingredients that are particularly good for your immune system. And then I share that every Friday, and you'd be welcome to receive that. Another guideline I use to eat more color, or to eat like an artist, is to always put the color on your plate first and try and make it dominate. Because if you don't, you end up putting all the beige stuff on, or just the meat, like the rice and the chips, or the fish and the potatoes, or the chicken. There's no space for the salad. And it's the salad where all the good stuff is. Another really important point to consider is, do you know when you are triggered into the stress response? So I tend to clench my jaw. I tend to crave more sugar, and I struggle to sleep. Why it's important to be able to identify when you're stressed is, if we ignore those, then it's easier for us to potentially get ill. So in another presentation, because I'd like to keep these presentations short and snappy so that they're easy to digest, pun intended, I'm going to talk about the link between roses and vineyards, and your immune system, and how that can help you to keep a strong immunity. But for now, we've covered quite a bit of ground. So what is it? I'm going to share a summary slide of what we've been through. And I'd like you to reflect on what are you going to do differently or try out based on spending the time and the energy to be with me. We looked at some things that you could do to help your head. So that's your mental well-being, how you can feel grounded and how you can stay curious and calm. So you can feel grounded by spending time in nature. You can use techniques like awareness of your body, of your senses, of your breathing, of relaxing your core. You can also do a body scan as one of the techniques. And then you can stay calm and curious by using reframe questions. And the one that I recommended was using the frame of, how is it entirely possible that? And that helps to tap into your imagination in a positive way. Then we looked at your heart, so your emotional well-being. And here you can connect with yourself and connect with others and stay calm despite stress. There are many things you can do here. Some of the few that I mentioned was radical self-acceptance. So there's no right or wrong here. Be compassionate toward yourself and others. Communicate as much as possible. Have random acts of kindness and look for things to celebrate, keeping an attitude of gratitude as much as possible. And then in terms of your HARA, your physical well-being, you can stay fit and energized and keep your immune system and your vitality strong by using motion to shift emotion. So try and exercise for as long as possible every day. Do something that you enjoy. That can be dancing, walking, running, yoga. Remember to stretch and get up every hour if you're working behind your laptop and seated all day. And then you have the Wellculator as a science-backed framework to help you benchmark your well-being habits. And one of the most important things to do to keep your immune system up is to eat like an artist. So eat lots of colorful, fresh produce to feed your gut all the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals and the fiber that it needs. So, like the little canine friend in the photograph, in nature, in the sunshine, lots of cues there with ABCs. And I'm curious to know, if you were to pledge one thing, if we were sitting together right now and I was going to ask you, hey, Sarah, Susan, John, Matthew, what is the one thing you're going to take and put into practice as soon as possible? Because the sooner you act on a new behavior that you commit to, the more likely you are to put it into place. And then by repeating it regularly, the more likely you are to get that positive affirmation and feedback and feel good about it. Now, there's a whole area around behavioral science and understanding how to create habits that stick that I would love to share with you. So I will do another separate video on that. How do you create habits that stick? The key is to keep them simple and as tiny as possible and to catch yourself doing them so that you feel good. Because we are more likely to change our behavior when we feel good as opposed to when we feel bad. So there's no space for guilt here. So what is your one thing? And in fact, I would be touched if you would let me know from this presentation, what is the one thing that you've committed to doing differently or to trying out? And if you would like to contact me, where to from here? My website has got my blog. There's also a lot of videos and some other resources there. I post regularly on LinkedIn using this framework of head, heart, and HARA. I share techniques that are working for me and for the ones that my clients and friends and colleagues are sharing. And I'd love you to be able to tap into those. And then, of course, there's also the Friday foodie recipe that I suggested. So if you'd like to get a recipe every Friday that's quick and easy and colorful, that's one way for us to stay in touch. So I'd like to really be able to see you before saying goodbye. I want to celebrate you. I want to salute you and say thank you for your time and thank you for putting your well-being first. Remote working and remote living can be more remarkable if we help ourselves and then those around us one step at a time. We can do this. We're in this together. We really can. I hope to hear from you. And until then, as the French would say, santé. Here's to your good health.